In 1645, a dying samurai climbed a mountain cave alone. He had killed his first opponent at 13. He had fought over 60 duels and never lost a single one. He had wandered Japan for decades, sleeping in forests, painting masterpieces, and carving wood with the same hands that had taken countless lives. And now, with only 7 days left to live, Miyamoto Musashi picked up his brush one final time. Not to paint. Not to write a battle strategy, but to write 21 rules. 21 rules that would reveal the brutal truth about how to live a free life. No philosophy book, no religion, no comfort. Just raw, unfiltered wisdom from a man who had stared death in the face more times than most people take a breath. Discipline, solitude, freedom, death. These rules were never meant for the weak. They were written by a man who had stripped away every illusion, every attachment, every lie we tell ourselves. And today, nearly 400 years later, they still cut deeper than any blade. This is the Dokkodo, the path of walking alone. And by the end of this video, you will understand why these 21 rules might be the most honest guide to life ever written. The lonely path. Before we unpack these rules, you need to understand the man who wrote them. Miyamoto Musashi was not a monk sitting in comfort, philosophizing about life. He was a killer, a wanderer, a man who chose the hardest path imaginable and walked it without flinching. Born around 1584, Musashi lost his mother as an infant and was raised by his uncle. At 13, he fought and killed a trained adult samurai in single combat. 13. Let that sink in. While most children were playing, Musashi was covered in blood, learning the first lesson life would teach him. That the world does not care about your age, your feelings, or your comfort. It only respects those who show up prepared. After that first kill, Musashi embarked on a warrior's pilgrimage called Musha Shujyo. He wandered Japan for decades, challenging every swordsman he could find. He slept under trees. He never married. He refused luxury. Do not seek pleasure for its own sake. This was not a man running from life. This was a man running toward the rawest version of it, and it is from this place of total solitude and self-mastery that the Dokkodo was born. But what exactly did he write in that cave, and why should you care 4 centuries later? Reject desire. The very first rules of the Dokkodo attack what most people build their entire lives around. Desire, pleasure, longing. Musashi writes, accept everything just the way it is. Do not seek pleasure for its own sake. Do not, under any circumstances, depend on a partial feeling. Think about how radical that is. We live in a world that screams at you to want more. More money, more validation, more dopamine. Every notification on your phone, every advertisement, every social media post is designed to make you desire something you do not have. And Musashi, 400 years ago, saw the trap before it was even built. He understood that desire is a leash. The moment you need something outside yourself to feel complete, you have handed your freedom to whoever controls that thing. Cut the chains, become free. This does not mean you cannot enjoy life. It means you stop being a slave to enjoyment. If this ancient warrior's wisdom is resonating with you right now, hit like and subscribe to unlock more treasures from the vault. Because what comes next cuts even deeper. There is a difference between appreciating a meal and needing that meal to feel okay. Musashi lived in that difference, and it made him unstoppable. But rejecting desire is only the beginning, because Musashi had something even more uncomfortable to say about regret. No regret. Musashi's 5th rule is perhaps the most psychologically devastating of all. He writes simply, think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world, and then he follows it with something even harder. Never let yourself be saddened by a separation. Do not regret what you have done. Most people carry regret like a second skeleton inside their body. Every failed relationship, every missed opportunity, every word they said or did not say, it sits in their chest and quietly poisons every new experience. Musashi says stop, not because what happened does not matter, but because looking backward is a form of cowardice. Forward, always forward. Think about it. When you regret something, what are you really doing? You are refusing to accept reality. You are arguing with the past, which is the one opponent you can never defeat. A samurai cannot fight with his sword pointed behind him, and you cannot live fully while your mind is trapped in yesterday. There is nothing outside of yourself that can ever enable you to get better, stronger, richer, quicker, or smarter. Everything is within. Musashi cut people down for a living, and he never once looked back at the fallen, not because he was cruel, because he understood that the present moment is the only battlefield that matters. But what happens when you strip away regret and desire? You are left with something terrifying, yourself, and that brings us to Musashi's most famous principle. Walk alone. The Dokkodo literally translates to the path of walking alone, and Musashi meant it with every fiber of his being. He writes, do not let yourself be guided by the feeling of lust or love. In all things, have no preferences. Never be jealous. Do not let yourself be saddened by a separation. Alone. Now, before you think Musashi was simply a lonely, bitter man, understand what he is really saying. He is not telling you to avoid people. He is telling you to stop needing them. There is a massive difference. Most people do not have relationships. They have emotional dependencies disguised as relationships. They stay in jobs they hate because they fear the loneliness of starting over. They stay in friendships that drain them because they cannot face an empty room. The strongest warrior is the one who needs nothing from anyone. Musashi understood that the person who walks alone is not running from connection. They are simply refusing to trade their freedom for the illusion of security. Self-reliance is power. He had students, he had patrons, he even adopted 2 sons, but he never once let those connections become chains. He could walk away from anything at any moment, and that is not cold. That is the deepest form of love there is, loving without clinging. But solitude means nothing without the next principle Musashi laid down. Master your craft. Musashi writes, respect the gods and Buddhas, but do not depend on them. Never stray from the way. This might sound contradictory, but it reveals something profound about his philosophy. Believe in something greater than yourself, but never use it as a crutch. Never wait for divine intervention when you can act. The gods help those who forge their own path. Musashi did not just master the sword, he mastered painting, calligraphy, sculpture, metalwork, and writing. His ink paintings are considered national treasures in Japan. His Book of 5 Rings remains one of the most studied texts on strategy ever written. He did not do this because he was naturally talented. He did it because he believed in one terrifying principle. It is difficult to understand the universe if you only study one planet. In other words, mastery is not about obsession with one thing. It is about understanding the underlying principles that connect everything. The discipline it takes to hold a sword perfectly is the same discipline it takes to hold a brush. The focus needed to defeat an opponent is the same focus needed to create art. Sword, art, mind, all one. Most people spend their lives being mediocre at many things and excellent at nothing. Musashi says pick your craft and pursue it until the distinction between you and it disappears. But mastery requires something most people are terrified of, and that is what Musashi addresses next. Embrace death. Here is where the Dokkodo gets truly dark. Musashi writes, be indifferent to where you live. Do not pursue the taste of good food. Do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. Do not act following customary beliefs. Strip away comfort, strip away routine, strip away everything that makes you feel safe. Why? Because safety is the greatest enemy of greatness. The samurai tradition had a concept called memento mori, remember that you will die. The Stoics in ancient Rome had the exact same idea, and Musashi took it further than anyone. He did not just think about death, he lived with it as his constant companion. Every duel could have been his last. Every night sleeping in the wilderness could have been his final rest. Death teaches life, and that proximity to death did not make him fearful, it made him absolutely free. When you truly accept that you are going to die, something extraordinary happens. Every petty worry evaporates. Every grudge seems ridiculous. Every excuse you have ever made reveals itself as cowardice. The man who has accepted his death fears nothing in life. Musashi did not write the Dokkodo despite knowing he was dying. He wrote it because he was dying. Death was his final teacher, and its lesson was simple. Stop wasting time. But there is one more dimension to Musashi's philosophy that most people completely miss. Strip the ego. Musashi writes, never be jealous of others. Never complain about yourself or feel pity for yourself. Do not collect weapons or practice with weapons beyond what is useful. The greatest enemy you will ever face wears your own face. This is Musashi attacking the ego, and he does it with surgical precision. Think about jealousy for a moment. When you are jealous of someone, what are you really saying? You are saying that the universe owes you what it gave to them. You are saying that your ego deserves more than reality has provided. Musashi calls this weakness, not because wanting more is wrong, but because jealousy is wanting without working. It is the coward's ambition. You must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain. And then there is self-pity. Musashi had every reason to feel sorry for himself, abandoned as a child, wandering alone for decades, no family, no home, no comfort, but he never once indulged in self-pity because he understood something most people never grasp. Self-pity is just ego wearing a mask of humility. When you feel sorry for yourself, you are still making everything about you. You are still centering yourself in the story. The truly humble person does not feel sorry for themselves because they are too busy walking their path. Ego kills growth, but stripping the ego is only one side of the equation. Musashi had something to say about what you build in its place. Honor without God. Perhaps the most radical rule in the Dokkodo is this: respect the gods and Buddhas, but do not depend on them. Never fear death. In one sentence, Musashi dismantles the entire framework most humans use to navigate morality. He says you can respect the divine without using it as a safety net. You can believe in something greater without surrendering your responsibility. Responsibility. This is where Musashi sounds remarkably like the existentialists who would come centuries later. Sartre said man is condemned to be free. Nietzsche declared God is dead. But Musashi, 300 years before either of them, said something even more nuanced. God is alive, respect him, but fight your own battles. Pray, fight, rule yourself. Most people use religion or ideology as an excuse to avoid personal responsibility. If things go well, God bless them. If things go badly, it was God's plan. Musashi says no, you draw the sword, you swing it, you live with the consequences. Your honor is not given by heaven, it is forged by your own hands. This is not atheism, this is something far more demanding. It is the belief that you are the author of your own honor, and no prayer, no ritual, no belief system can do the work for you. And this leads us to the final and perhaps most important principle of all. Body as weapon. Musashi writes, keep your body strong, do not pursue the taste of good food, do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. Most people reading the Dokkodo focus on the spiritual and philosophical rules, but Musashi never separated mind from body. To him, they were one thing. Mind, body, blade. A dull body creates a dull mind, a weak body breeds weak thoughts, and a body enslaved to pleasure becomes a prison for the spirit. When Musashi says do not pursue the taste of good food, he is not saying starve yourself. He is saying stop letting your tongue make your decisions. How many people eat not because they are hungry, but because they are bored, anxious, lonely, or sad? Your body is either a temple or a tomb. You choose every single day. Musashi trained his body relentlessly, not for vanity, not for competition, but because the body is the vehicle through which all action flows. If the vehicle is broken, the journey ends. The ultimate aim of martial arts is not having to use them. He kept his body sharp so that his mind could be sharper. He denied himself comfort so that discomfort could never control him. The warrior who controls his body controls his destiny. And when you combine a disciplined body with a liberated mind and a stripped ego, you arrive at Musashi's ultimate destination. The final rule. The final rule. The 21st and final rule of the Dokkodo is devastatingly simple. Musashi writes, never stray from the way, that is it. After 20 rules about rejecting desire, walking alone, embracing death, mastering your craft, and stripping your ego, Musashi ends with the simplest instruction imaginable. Stay on the path. The path is not the destination, the path is the life. Because Musashi understood something most people never figure out, there is no finish line. There is no moment where you arrive and everything is perfect. There is only the path and the daily choice to keep walking it. Most people fail not because the path is too hard, they fail because they expect it to end. They expect a reward, a paradise, a moment of arrival. Walk, climb, forever. Musashi wrote these rules knowing he had 7 days left to live. 7 days. And even then, even in the shadow of death, his final instruction was not to rest. It was to keep walking. Never stray from the way, even in your final breath. That is the power of the Dokkodo. It does not promise you happiness. It does not promise you success. It promises you something far more valuable. Freedom. The freedom of a man who needs nothing, fears nothing, and regrets nothing. The freedom of a man who walks alone, not because he has no one, but because he has himself. Miyamoto Musashi died on June 13, 1645 in that cave on Mount Iwado. He left behind no wealth, no family legacy, no empire, just a book, some paintings, and 21 rules scrawled on a piece of paper. And yet, 4 centuries later, his words cut through the noise of modern life like a blade through silk. Discipline, freedom, legacy. We live in an age of endless distraction, constant comparison, and paralyzing comfort. Musashi's Dokkodo is the antidote, not because it is easy, but because it is honest. It tells you what no self-help book, no motivational speaker, and no algorithm will ever tell you. The only true freedom comes from needing nothing and fearing no one. You do not need more followers, you do not need more money, you do not need anyone's approval. You need discipline, you need solitude. You need the courage to walk your own path, even when every voice around you is begging you to follow theirs. If you made it this far, comment Dokkodo to prove you walk the path of the warrior. The wisdom of the ages is yours. Use it well. If this unlocks something in you, subscribe for more. The vault has more wisdom waiting.